Adam and Eve in the garden where nothing was wrong. Everything was right, but they figured out a way to do it their way and they messed things up. I read one thing when I was going on Donnie's podcast that same day that said, for those the devil can't get with sin, the devil will get with busyness if that person didn't push me to that edge. So I was looking at that because this person might be my romantic partner. And I was looking at that and I was getting annoyed by it a little bit. But it was like, we can focus on it that way. Lights, camera, action. Hey, billionaires. It is your girl, Blessin here. Hope your new year is starting off super darn fantastic. I must say, mine is, because I have practiced and am mastering the ability to ignore everything around me that is not pleasing, that is not delightful, that is not positive. I don't care what it is. I have decided I am living in my own reality, and whatever I believe, I shall receive if I really, really, really believe it. So today, the B is for believe, and every day, the B is for believe. All right, let's get to it, y'all. Welcome to our 4th episode of the B Word. Okay, we getting some consistency. Let's go. Today's episode, God, is going to be on the topic of God does not desire us to have a hard life. Episode 4, God does not desire us to have a hard life. How many of you feel like your life is hard? Or how many of you feel like you've experienced hard times in your life? Okay, well, we're going to jump into it. But that is what today's episode is about. And I am glad that today's episode is about this because this podcast is entitled The B Word because it's always meant to be God first and me second. And I was coming up with thoughts and ideas and overthinking about the podcast. In general, the Blessin way. And I was about to be doing too much. And I was like, you know what? Bring it back. What are we here for? Who wants us here? Do we even want to be here? So let's do it the way we were instructed to do it. So with that being said, I just get inspired by my topics. Like at first I was trying to weigh myself down. Like I need to figure out what I'm speaking about so I can record several episodes. And I wanted to start my podcast in the garden. And because that was a real experience for me this summer where I feel like I consciously went back into the Garden of Eden, but I felt so bad because I wasn't documenting the process. And I'm like, how now from last summer to almost a new summer am I going to, I have so many notes. I have so many revelations, but all of it was so good when you was in that feeling, when you was in that moment, when you was in that season. And now that I'm out of that season and in a different season, and you can tell you're in a different season, it's hard to even explain with accuracy what you was trying to explain before. So that is why it's very important to be obedient and speed when God gives you a word. So, well, it depends. When it's time, it's time, because God's time, your time, speed, right time, wrong time is 2 different times. Because guess what? We're here now, episode 4. This must have been the time I was supposed to be here with y'all because we're here at this time. So with that being said, God does not desire us to have a hard life. I want to just marinate on that for a moment, and then I am going to come back around to how I came to this episode's download. So I'm currently reading along with the podcast as reading the entire Bible in 365 days. So I'm just starting fresh, and I'm experiencing these families, the first families of God's word from a new mindset, and for the first time in a long time. And I am just looking and experiencing an outsider looking in, like, wow, God really did give them the play and told them to do things in a certain way. And every single time, man got in the way, not to do it maliciously, but just in a way where they thought initially they had a better way of doing it than God did. And one family that I want to point out right now before I forget this train of thought is Jacob and Esau. And I got a really great revelation from their story in the Bible, because Jacob was the younger brother and Esau was the older brother that was supposed to get the birthright and the blessing. And by accident, it was given to Jacob because he tricked his daddy into giving him the things that really belonged to his brother. But what is so profound about that is when the father, our father, found out that he had given the birthright to the wrong person, he had given the blessing to the wrong person, it couldn't be taken back. Like once your father gives you the blessing, it's impossible for God to renege on his word. But what you can do is take the blessing and the birthright into your own hands, and that creates the difficulty. For example, Jacob got the blessing and the birthright because he tricked God into getting those things, but the lessons and the price he had to pay for being blessed and having the birthright, there's a lot of things he had to go through that he brought upon himself from stealing that from the rightful owner in the first place. So even though God is going to do what he said he's going to do, which is give you a life of ease, you have now made it difficult because you wanted to trick and figure it out and rework the plan and make it be your way. So God put us in the garden, and just like Adam and Eve, he put us there for leisure. He put us there for even our work to feel like blissfulness. And we took it upon ourselves that we wanted to be more like him, maybe not even for a malice reason, but it was a disobedient reason. And now here we are. We got that situation, and every generation after that, we are our father and mother's sons and daughters, because we'll be quick to say, I wouldn't do, and I would have done it this way. And every time from the beginning of time, something that is not the right thing, technically speaking, we do it and we got it from our parents per se. Like I have a direct situation of my oldest brother was raised by my father, and then I was conceived, and then my mom and father broke up. So technically speaking, my oldest brother got way more time with my biological father than I did. My mother started dating my dad when he was so young that she initially told him that that was his father, because he was a baby, like 2 years old. And so at 2, I mean, and this is the present person in your life. My mom didn't feel the need at that point in time to break down how the fatherhood situation actually worked. So someone in the family, I believe, because my brother's like 16 years older than me. If I'm telling the story wrong, y'all can correct me if the family's watching. I think he was around 8 to 10, and someone in the family informed him that that was not his biological father, and he did not take that news well. He felt like my mom had lied to him. And I said all that to say, I feel like my brother, from the outside of looking in, is probably still affected by that decision. But he grew up and did the same exact thing. Like he grew up and was dating a young lady, and as far as we was aware, the story was one thing. And then when the block got hot, like my mother needed to provide you with the father, things were said that was very much in lineage to things my mother had said. And the reason he said those things is because he was trying to protect the child, which was the same reason my mother said what she said to you when you was a child, because she was trying to protect the child. But here you are as an adult who you do not like the game plan that your mother did, but you're yet doing the same thing. So you either fall victim of habit or you fall victim of creating a new life. Those are your choices. You're going to be like the ancestors, or you're not going to be like the ancestors. Or you're going to take the good, or you're going to leave the bad. But everything is a decision. But I said all that to say, I feel like there's still some way he feels about my mom. But I was hoping that with that experience happening in his own life, it would have opened the door of forgiveness. Like, wow, now that I'm an adult and no longer a child and I can see things the way adults see things, I understand why my mother did what she did. I find myself doing the same thing she did because I love this child, and explaining anything else would be way too much in this season of their lives. But with practicality, this story should make a lot of sense for those who want to forgive, because that's also a decision. Now, that was nowhere in my notes, but that is how we came to God desires you to have a good life. I wanted a way to go back to the garden, and God is so good and faithful that even is the beginning of the year, and because of this Bible lesson that I came by so randomly, but I've been in tune ever since. I said, I'm going to start from the beginning. And that put me back in the beginning and back in the garden and back in the right place for me to tell my story of why this podcast even exists in the first place, because it's supposed to be told from Blessin in the garden. So look at God. We're back where we need to be. So that's how we got here. And if anything else needs to, the last thing I'm going to piggyback on really heavily on that is that Adam and Eve in the garden where nothing was wrong. Everything was right, but they figured out a way to do it their way and they messed things up. Cain and Abel, everything was good, but Cain figured out his reasoning to mess up paradise. Same with Noah, his children, Abraham, his children, like Abraham and Sarah. God promised y'all was going to be the mother and father of many, many, many generations. And y'all stop believing. Mind you, I would have too, because how you going to be a father of many generations and you don't have any children yet? God made that promise to you 25 years ago. You're old and past childbearing years. And here it is, God showing up in your life talking about you about to have a baby. Like, God, I don't even want the baby no more. Like, I don't even want the promises no more. I'm too old to be running around chasing these kids. But who's to say that they didn't slow the process down? Who's to even say that there is a time to the process? God knows everything, bigger than you, bigger than me. He's the one who put the sun, the moon, the planets in alignment. We have come accustomed to having babies between what? Traditionally are you're supposed to what, maybe 18 to 39 is okay by society standards, but maybe God wants you to be pregnant at 80. Like, and the promise still be fulfilled, because once you get the blessing and once you get the birthright, it has to come. And that is what I've been leaning into as of late, instead of trying to figure out how to get to the birthright, how to get to the blessing. I just know it's mine. And if it's mine, and if I listen to God, because he gave it to me in the first place, he's going to lead me to it. And he's going to lead me to it the soft way and not the hard way if I get out the way. Just so you know, this show is brought to you by Your Accident, Your Money. If you or anyone that you know is ever in a car wreck, you call us at 888-7-MONEY-8, and we will help not only them get paid, because everybody does that, but we'll pay you for those referrals. So every person you send our way, whether it's one person in the car or multiple people in that one car, that's $200 per person. They just must not be at fault or a passenger in general, and they have to have some pain. 888-7-MONEY-8, and we will get you straight. Now, how did I come up with this question? Me and my girl Gigi, we just left Barbados. I'm looking at my tan right now, like my face is so light and my body looks a little darker. Don't y'all start dwelling on that. But as I'm looking in the camera, I see a little difference, because that's because I'm golden and my foundation probably needs to be changed up. So with that being said, we were talking, and me and her, it's a good conversation because I'm a conversationalist. And in this season, I'm connecting in more depth with my friends that are deep, not wide, but we can talk spiritually, differently. Like we're so different, but the respect level is at an all-time high, that there's nothing she can say that offends me, and there's nothing I say that offends her. And we're just comfortable with allowing each other to be in our authentic, real truths. That is like when you can be naked with somebody, everything. So anyway, I'm preaching to her because I'm in my head, I'm big sis. And the question I said, if God came down here right now and asked me, do I desire a hard life or a soft life? I would tell him hard. And I'm going in on my reason. I'm like, because who wants to be a dull axe? If the world is coming to an end, I want to be the girl who knows how to kick butt and put things together. And, I had a little bit of a hard life, so I have experience with anything that may come my way. Like, I'm a warrior queen for real. And I'm 10 toes down on, like, if they ready to fight, I might lose a couple of battles, but I'm gonna win the war because I know how to whoop their ass. And I got in the shower, and just like that, the Holy Spirit said, so you mean to tell me if God offered you a hard life or a soft life, and this offer was from God, you would choose hard? And just like that, I went back to the garden. Eve chose hard when she ate from the tree. I'm choosing hard, feeling like I got to fight my battles. And whatever you believe, you receive. But I could choose easy and let God fight every single one. And I could really live a soft life in peace, in freedom of, I know my God got me. Faith without work is dead. Work was always a part of the plan, but work was a part of the plan from a perspective of, this brings me joy. This brings me happiness. To be useful, to be your authentic self and get on the podcast and talk is work. And to be useful because God said you got a voice and the people need to hear it is true. I got a random phone call today that it was just so perfect timing for today's conversation, because she said, Blessin, it's one thing to have a glow up. She said, there ain't many girls glowing up after the glow up. She said, you have grown up after the glow up. And I was like, wow, thank you for sharing that with me, because I'm such a big beast spirit that I used to get embarrassed that no one was tuning into my shows in masses and big numbers. So I would forfeit the girl who called me today. I would forfeit the friend who told me, Blessin, keep going. I would forfeit those few who really didn't need me because I felt like the masses didn't need me. But God is not that kind of God. God is the one that when he's the shepherd and one sheep gets left behind, he goes back for the one sheep. And the only difference in what I told her on the phone was God told me, it's in you. Like, everything you want, everything you need, everything you desire, you already got it. But the way you work for the money, the way you go hard, like the way you get up at 7 to 7 or 7 days a week, like if you could do that for your spirit self, the way you've gone for your financial self, I got some things to show you. And she asked me, she said, did you hire a coach to elevate to this glow up? I said, nope, the exact opposite. The coaches, God bless y'all souls, I know y'all meant well. And I needed y'all to come to my conclusions that I've come to. But I said it was me blocking out the coaches. It was me saying no to the therapy and hearing his perspective. And it was just me. It was a few little life events that made me want to hear from God. And when I started asking specific questions, and I had coaches out of my ear, and I had friends out of my ear, and I took my social media break, and I want to say God started talking to me, but that's not true. God is always talking to you, but if you're consumed, you can't hear him. I read one thing when I was going on Donnie's podcast that same day that said, for those the devil can't get with sin, the devil will get with busyness. And because I was just so consumed with, I got to figure this out. Blessin got to do it. I got to hire this coach. I got to copy their way. What? Now I got a baby. I got to feed somebody and feed me. I can't just be out here on faith, because faith means believing in something you don't see. I need to see something, Lord. And just like that, if I couldn't see it, I'm a believer by heart. Like I'm a believer by nature. So even my spirit was fighting for me when my flesh wasn't. And that's again, my flesh, we know you that girl. We know you know how to put in the work, but can your spirit keep up? Can she be a gladiator? Can she be a warrior? Can you warrior in spirit? And that's when you find the rest. And that's when you find the ease. And that's when you find the peace. And that's when you find the peace, the freedom. And that's when you learn God never did desire you to be doing all that hard stuff. When you're doing I told God I was journaling, just not even journaling. I even know how to use what we would call depression and sadness for my goodness. Like this past weekend, I was in my feelings and I knew I shouldn't have been there. Like I knew I was going to have to pull myself out of it. But in that moment, I had just decided I was going to live it. And I had decided that even though I was living it, I was going to watch things that encouraged my spirit. Like my flesh is weak, but I'm going to still press forward into the word, even though I don't want to. I'm going to still press forward in documentaries that I know would show me something I need to see, even though I don't want to. I'm going to press forward listening to these tapes from people like Earl Nightingale and what's his name, Bob Proctor, even though it sounds like some bullshit right now. I'm going to press because I know the principle is true. And I know when I snap out of this, my subconscious mind would have eaten up all this shit and I'm going to be in good health. And just like that, that's just what it did. But the sadness made the fire ignite. Like the sadness was like, oh no, we got to get out of this. We got to get in overtime. But it was inspiration at the same time for other things. Like you got to get mad sometimes. You got to get sad sometimes. But you got to know how to use it as a tool. You got to know how to use it as fuel. Maybe because I'm a fire sign. And even with that, that's when your fire and that energy and that warrior spirit, now you're just doing that from your natural state. Like I'm not trying to be fire no more. I am fire. Like when I came to that revelation, even this weekend, I just started saying to myself, I forgot how cool I was. Like she is really like I ain't got to put on. I ain't got to post. I ain't got this. I used to want to say so much. I ain't got to do nothing but be. I'm so cool. And it's just such a beautiful place to be when you realize God didn't even desire you to be struggling on the bullshit the way you've been struggling. And there's a certain individual that I know God uses to talk to me because this person might irritate me and it pushes me to go find the spirit of excellence. And I get a revelation about myself that I just wouldn't have had if that person didn't push me to that edge. So I was looking at that because this person might be my romantic partner. And I was looking at that and I was getting annoyed by it a little bit. But it was like, we can focus on it that way, or we can focus on what's causing you to be annoyed in the first place. And we can heal the spirit of being annoyed. Because honestly, it's because the spirit loves this person so much. It wants to figure out a way to live in harmony. And a lot of us are living in ego. And when you live in ego, you can't live in harmony because ego wants to prove things. Harmony understands things. And it's not life or death. It's actually a beautiful thing to embrace if you are soft enough to do so. But yeah, that was that. So let me see if I have any more notes. So that's how we came to that conversation. So I want to mention that again, that one of my epiphanies was I started ask and you shall receive. Like I've always prayed. I've always, thought I was asking, but I started talking to God like I would a therapist. Like my specific question is, why do I have this kind of issue because of separation? Like what makes me feel this way? And just like a therapist, this'll happen, that'll happen, this'll happen, that'll happen, or he'll just tell me directly, or the synchronicities will be so symphonetic, like a symphony, like everything just flows, and you like an outsider looking in at the sheet of music, like Uh-huh. I do see how this all had to build up because nobody want to just hear a song that's flat. We got to have the, even in a story, you got to have your beginning, you got to have your, what do we call your climax, you got to have your middle, you got to have some bridge in the song, then you have your ending. It's not just a straight path because then the story would be boring if I just got blessed every day. We got to hear about, damn, she did that and then she got blessed. Now that makes me a bestseller on the way. So yeah. So we talked about some of the reasons I came up with the topic of discussion. Yeah, I covered a lot of things already. Um, yeah, and then this is one other thing me and my boyfriend was talking about this week. We was talking about I dropped my phone by accident. I need to see if somebody calls me. 1 second, guys. Okay. And we are back. Just so you know, this show is brought to you by Your Accident, Your Money. If you or anyone that you know is ever in a car wreck, you call us at 888-7-MONEY-8 and we will help not only them get paid because everybody does that, but we'll pay you for those referrals. So every person you send our way, whether it's one person in the car or multiple people in that one car, that's $200 per person. They just must not be at fault or a passenger in general, and they have to have some pain. 888-7-MONEY-8, and we will get you straight. All right, back to the episode. So I think I'm going to wrap with this last topic. I freestyled this mostly. I'll watch this again and I'll do a part B for anything I did not forget. We got the A side and the B side. That's how I kind of want to format the show. I want to try to have the A side be my raw thoughts. And then I want to kind of, well, I'm going to take a couple of notes like I did. And then I'll speak freely. And then I'll watch it again. And then I'll do the B side, which would be like, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that. But yeah, me and my boyfriend, we were talking and we were just, we're not caught up on what I love about the both of us is we're not caught up even before the spiritual awakening. Like we're just not caught up on people for real. Like he's not into the social media. I'm not really, I post, but I'm not, you can tell I'm not into it. Like we don't care about celebrity lifestyles. We don't watch the news. Like he watch a little TV. I don't. But the point I'm trying to make here is we can't help but notice Jay-Z and Beyonce, right? We can't help but notice Rihanna and someone like ASAP Rocky dating and just seeing what those characteristics look like. And from an admirer point of view, talking about what you admire or don't admire. So those are two beautiful billionaire, powerful couples. So, we're both striving to be billionaires. So I pay attention to what other billionaires are doing. And we got on the topic of, do we think that Jay-Z and Beyonce are madly in love? Or does it feel like, what does that relationship dynamic feel like to you versus Rihanna's and ASAP's relationship? And we both kind of came to the conclusion that we definitely feel that Jay-Z and Beyonce are in love. They don't come across very lovey-dovey, even though it seems that's their attempt. They come off very power couple, very generational wealth, very business, very trust are in place. Generations will eat and be blessed as Abraham's heir because of me. Like that's understood. That is the purpose of this union. And then on the other hand, you got Ace. This is just, we don't know from a can of paint. This is just our lame, not even lame. This is just rough, loose. If we was a fly on the wall, what we think we see. And we were like, it seems like ASAP Rocky are more like really in tuned in love. Like the way he looks at her, it looks like his heart is just into it. Like the way she looks at him, it just looks like she just wants to kiss him in that moment. Like you can feel a different type of romantic love. And which one are we or are they, and which one do we desire to be? And for a long time, like I always wanted to be the Jay-Z and Beyonce, which is still who I am on the core because that's just who you are. But with theirs, it just seems like it just seems shallowly top surface that a lot of effort has been put in place to make there to make that happen. ASAP and Rihanna give me the faith. Like, you can see the playfulness, you can see the youthfulness. And I say all that to say she's still a billionaire. They still billionaires. They still got there from both perspectives. So for those of us who are really revved up with business, and we're missing things like the growth of our children or just being happy every day because we're so caught up in work, it might not be a bad idea to step back and actually do find what you absolutely, and y'all don't, I ain't even that big enough for this to spread like wildfire, but get the message from what I'm trying to say about Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Rihanna and ASAP. This is not end all be all. This is just my fake philosophy. But I do believe so many of us high achievers, we've lost sight of the joy, of the happiness, of the presentness, of the romanticization of life in general. And I just love that my boyfriend and I, we had that conversation. And when I have conversations like that, I can't even speak for him. My subconscious remembers these things, and it goes to work to make sure that we receive these things and that we put in place what we need to put in place. But we'll always have that love and lightheartedness and childlikeness that God loves, because we are God's children. Like, when I think about God and how he looks at me and how he looks at Barack and I are peers, because in God's eyes, that's my little brother. I'm his sister. We're his children. And so when you look at it that way, it also reminds you, we're going to do a podcast on how Barack is me at 6 in my new, you guys, I'm no longer having an age going forward. Every year I'm going to turn radiant. What was the name I came up with? Radiant soul. My age is radiant soul from now to the rest of my life. How old are you? I'm a radiant soul. That is my answer. So at my radiant soul age and Barack's radiant soul age, I just see so much of me in him, and the problems and the hardships that he brings upon himself are the same ones I do. But it's just looking at him handling it from an immature perspective versus a mature perspective. And like, I can't wait for him to get it, because I know that's how I acted or would feel if I didn't get it. And I just can't wait for him to get it. But because I got it, I know he will get it. And it's just a beautiful thing to look at that way. But yeah, so that was my perspective. And I just love that I've never been an or girl. My philosophy has always been an and girl. And I am the girl who's going to have it all. And I'm just so blessed that God has afforded me such favor, because I believe. Um, yeah. Yeah. So I hit on most of everything that I want to talk about in detail. And then I'm going to listen to this where I see a couple of notes where I can go even deeper. But what I've said so far is going to help me do this and that. So, billionaires, I hope you have enjoyed episode number 4. And until next time, God, as y'all stay blessed, stay thinking big, and don't make it hard on yourselves. Don't make it hard on yourselves. You got this. Peace.